In this video, we're going to discuss grade. Now, we had an earlier video on turquoise grade where I looked at different grade, mostly the higher grades, from one mine, Thunder Mountain. Today, I want to talk about grade in a more general sense. Turquoise is complicated. It's hard to learn about turquoise, and that's one of the goals here of Turquoise in America and with our different videos and articles is try to help people become more familiar with turquoise, because I believe that an educated consumer is a better customer, but only for the honest vendor. And we're all about honesty and transparency here at Turquoise in America. So we begin with turquoise in that it is a two-tier market. In most turquoise, 80% or more of turquoise has to be treated before it can be used in jewelry. And that forms of treatment run the gamut from just plastic, just not even turquoise at all, to turquoise block, which is a composite block where you take bits of turquoise and dye and other minerals and put it together with plastic and put it in a block press, and you come up with a block of turquoise that you can cut in any way you want. That's imitation turquoise, and it really dominates the marketplace. Then you start running into various levels, grades, if you want to call it that, of treated turquoise, different forms of stabilization, enhancement, and all of those come in different levels of grade. It gets complicated because some marketers have said, well, if it comes from the ground, it's natural. Well, I suppose there is some truth in that, but trying to compare untreated turquoise, or it's natural and has no form of treatment, with turquoise that came out of the ground, but then it was infused with plastic and other forms of treatment, that's a far stretch. Natural, not treated in any fashion, is maybe anywhere from 15 to 20% of all the turquoise that is mined. And even there we get into problems of definition, because for some folks, they get real touchy about natural. So if it has had any surface treatment at all, if you buff it with ZAM, now you've treated it. If you have filled in any of the pits, now you've treated it. Even if you've added backing, now it's no longer natural, even though, unlike stabilization, you can remove that backing and then you just have an untreated stone. So my feeling on that is, as long as you have full disclosure, you'll leave it up to the marketplace, up to the consumer to make those decisions. But our grading system, the turquoise grading system, using the R2 rules of grading that I developed, and which you can read about on the blog at turquoiseinamerica.com, is only for natural turquoise. Because after all, with treated stone, what are you grading? Are you grading the stone, or are you grading the treat? And sometimes it's a little bit of both. So just for natural turquoise. Now the next challenge comes in that we're dealing in the area of subjective observation. We're going to look at that stone and we're going to make decisions based on our own subjective opinions and biases, prejudices, runs the gamut. And even though we try to be as objective as we can, it's a challenge. Now, through that, we have two goals. For most people on the Facebook and Instagram, they're asking, well, this is my grandfather's turquoise, can anybody identify it? Well, you're trying to identify turquoise through subjective observation is a challenge, as we've discussed a lot. So there's mine ID, but then there's also grade. You're looking at that turquoise and trying to say, well, what grade is this? And applying the turquoise grading system to do that. Now, the grading system is absolute. It's not relative. In other words, it's not mine dependent. In other words, we're not taking one mine and saying, well, what's the highest grade that comes out of that mine and calling it gem level. We're saying gem level is an absolute grade, and some mines may not show the highest level. Now, that doesn't detract from their quality or their importance. It's just, that's as far as that particular mine produces. And that's the most beautiful or the highest grade that comes from that particular mine. So with mine identification, we have subjective observation, but we also have scientific testing available. Now, there has been scientific testing available for some time, but it has been expensive, and most importantly, it's destructive. So you don't want to have your turquoise that you think is Lander blue, and the tests come back and they say, well, the good news is it's Lander blue. Bad news is we destroyed your sample. That's not going to happen. So we do have a means to do that, X-ray fluorescence, that is analyzing the elements, the chemistry, the elements of the chemistry in the stone. And there's an explanation of that on a video, and then we have a report that was done because Neil Ray, a geologist, had approached me, and he wanted to do this testing, but he didn't have reliable samples with good provenance. I mean, after all, your testing is only going to be as reliable as if you know or you're really confident that your testing sample did in fact come from a particular mine. So I took 100 and some samples, went to Pampa, Texas. We had them tested. And I also had, for each stone, I had a turquoise grade. And what I was really impressed with, and you can read that report on the website in the digital book section, I was really impressed because not only were we pretty successful in finding specific footprints for individual mines, but the turquoise grade that I had assigned through subjective observation correlated very highly with the grading that came out of the X-ray fluorescence. So we've got a lot of promise with that science. It's just going to require folks participating, testing their turquoise, and building that database. So when we're talking about grade among natural turquoise, we really start with mid-grade, which will really run from about 20% of all turquoise to 10%. Then we go into the high mid-grade, which is maybe that 10% to 5%. High grade will come in at the 5% level. Very high grade is really getting quite rare. Maybe 1% of all turquoise will be very high grade. And then at the very highest, what I call gem grade, is 1/10 of 1%. So among the rarest of all gemstones, period. Certainly the rarest of all turquoise. So that's one of the reasons when you see the price escalation, when you go from composite block, which really sells for pennies per carat, then you get into different forms of stabilization, and you may get up to $1, even $2 a carat. Once you get into enhanced turquoise, you may be up in the $3 range, which puts you into the same price range as a mid-grade natural. But from there, the prices jump. You may go $3, $5 on mid-grade natural. It's going to double. You'll hit $10 or more for high mid-grade, and then it doubles again when you get into the high grade, or even more. And then jumping, not doubling, but even quadrupling, depending on the mine, when you go into gem grade. And yeah, you may really think, well, I'm not going to pay that kind of money for turquoise, but that was the attitude I had 10 years ago when I was putting this collection together. And if I listened to that voice saying, oh, this is too expensive, I wouldn't have the turquoise that we're going to look at today. And I'm sure glad I bought then, even though I thought the prices were really high. Because unless the laws of supply and demand go away, we can expect to see higher prices for turquoise. So with that, let's look at some gem grade turquoise. Well, here we're seeing a sample of some gem grade turquoise from the Calais collection. And these are just some random mines that I selected as I was going through the collection, just to give you an example of some different gem grade looks from different mines. We start off here with a little pair, nice little pair of cabs from Red Mountain. Now, Red Mountain comes in a dark web. Usually the higher grades come in the darker web. But this one I particularly like. While it does have the dark web, really shows a lot of really characteristic Red Mountain blue. Really high, very, very high grade, gem grade blue, which is really why I ended up just barely getting into the gem grade category on the TG system. Next, we go across here and we see from Pilot Mountain. Now, this is really exceptional, and the story of how this turquoise was found is in Turquoise in America Part 3. This was found when Monty Anderson, who was mining the claim, went up the hill, tried to see if he could have any luck higher up the hill, and he just found a little bit of this exceptional webbed material from Pilot. And Bill King tried to duplicate that and went up there, and he didn't have any luck at all. You can read that story in Turquoise in America Part 3. Here we see coming from Indian Mountain. Indian Mountain comes in two gem grade looks. One is a red web, and this is a dark web. That's kind of similar to what we see at number 8. And so here we have the dark web, beautiful Indian Mountain. Got to have a little green here, so we have some really beautiful, this chartreuse green coming from Caraco Lake. I matched this with these Bisbee cabs here because I thought, oh boy, wouldn't those make a beautiful hoop earring with the green and the blue together? So who knows? Maybe someone will follow up on that idea and make some beautiful earrings from these cabs. Finally, we finish up here with a nice big, this is an 18 karat Bisbee with that smoky Bisbee look and this nice little element of this darker blue here with a little bit of quartz in there. Really, really nice combination. Different matrix looks and exceptional look for gem grade Bisbee, which, as we know, so very hard to find in the marketplace, especially with good provenance. And you know, the more you're paying, the higher the grade, the more you better pay attention to provenance, because while it may not affect the grade, it's sure going to affect knowing where the mine came from, unless you want to follow up and have it tested. So we have a lot more options now available to us. So I hope you've enjoyed this look at gem grade.